Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am your host, Michele Irby Johnson, and I want to welcome you to Life Matters with Michele. You know, this is a platform where we discuss issues and topics that directly affect our community. And I want to invite you all to, of course, leave me some questions so that we can certainly have our special guest answer those questions. I will be fielding those questions over to him. And we're so excited to have with us today Mr. Brian J. Olds. I wish I could, hear you all clapping, but I am so excited to have him join me today. You all don't know who you have before you. I promise you, you don't. I've only known him maybe 2 months, but I feel like it's been a lifetime of engagement because I have sat at his feet at some things that he has presented, and I'll get into that a little later. But I'm so excited for the opportunity for meeting him. You know, God doesn't make mistakes, and there was not a mistake that I was connected with Mr. Brian Olds. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Michelle. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to have you here today. We're going to have a great show today. Before we get started, of course, I want to introduce you to our listening and our viewing audience because they don't know who they're getting ready to meet. I promise you, they're going to be very excited. So, just by way of introduction, Mr. Brian Olds, he was not born with a natural enthusiasm for public speaking. A burgeoning change agent in the industry, the Baltimore native inadvertently entered the world of speaking when he delivered his first speech at Morgan State University Toastmasters Club in 2006. If y'all don't know how to speak, that's a great way to get started, I tell you. Brian instantly connected to his passion when he found himself standing in front of a standing ovation at the conclusion of his speech. Since discovering his passion for speaking, Brian has been on numerous radio broadcasts, podcasts, at all types of platforms, sharing his heart about entrepreneurship. He is identified as a curator of collaboration. That's just wonderful. And he specializes in empowering rising professional speakers to create clarity, to streamline systems, and to cultivate the relationships needed to reach the unique audiences to which they are called to serve. He has created and started the Black Speakers Network, which I am proudly a part of. This is how I met him, and we'll get into that. It is a membership-based professional speakers and development and an empowerment company with a deep appreciation for artistry and speaking at the helm of his career. Brian J. Olds is defining success on his own terms. His impact is illustrated perfectly in industry mate Zigzag's quote. It's not where you start, but it's where you finish that counts. I tell you, that is some good stuff right there. Welcome, everybody, Mr. Brian Olds. Hey, sir.
What's going on? Listen, Michelle, you are absolutely invited to introduce me at any time. And in addition to that, yes, we are very honored to have you as a part of the BSN community. So if anybody's watching this, if you're part of BSN, we're doing this thing now, hashtag BSN in the building. So feel free to drop a hashtag BSN in the building if you're a part of the community. And Michelle, I got to say, you have some of the best interest music. Did y'all hear that interest music? I want to go download that. That is some killer intro. So you already got me hooked. And I'm here to, just as excited as you. So thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, I just wanted to give everybody a snippet. Someone introduced me to Black Speakers Network because I'm trying to broaden my brand. I mean, I have the gift of gab naturally. And so I love to speak. So I've wanted to get out on platforms. I teach, I'm a professor, all of these different things, but I wanted to speak, on stages and, outside of my preaching, but I wanted to speak on stages, and someone introduced me to Brian through the Black Speakers Network. And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it is a phenomenal platform by which to be a part of. We get different types of training. We get live streams. We get all of this stuff to make us better people. And I must say this. Had it not been for something that Brian said in one of these presentations we had, Life Matters with Michele would not be in existence. Let's just pause right there and say, because he
Mm,
said something. He said, if no one's calling you to speak, sometimes you have to create your own platform.
yes.
And so I'm just glad that I was sensitive enough to be obedient to what he said. And I said, you know what? That's all right. So again, I am so excited. And today, Brian is going to bring to us the topic of business power systems for success. Business power systems for success. So, Brian, this is what we're discussing.
Yes.
What do you have to say about business power systems for success?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm just in awe. I am. You are a model of what the reason we created Black Speakers Network, Michelle. And we very much. I love people who take action. I love individuals who don't wait for perfection in order to make progress. And sometimes you just got to go for it. And that's certainly, what I did. Just to kind of go back in the story a little bit from what you shared in the bio, because you are right. If you had been sitting in that small classroom back in 2006 at Morgan State University in the summertime, you would have watched as I stood up, walked to the front of the room, and prepared to deliver my very first speech in Toastmasters. And I mean, Michelle, if you were on the front row, you would have noticed all types of stuff happening to me. Sweaty palms, shaking voice. At one point, I almost walked out of the room. I had a Nigerian friend, his name's Deepo Adesina. He's like waving me to come back in the room. Like all these things are happening. And on the inside, what nobody could see was like the butterflies flying around, trying to escape, and all these things happening to me. But yes, the stories are true. I completed this presentation. I didn't die on the spot like I thought I would. I
Yes.
did have a standing ovation, although I do want to add in that, Toastmasters, I mean, Michelle, you've been, if anybody's been to a Toastmasters club, we pretty much clap for everything. Like if you bring your lunch to the meeting, you're probably gonna get a round of applause. So it's fine. But it made me feel good and it made me want to do keep going. And the third thing I realized, and this is what sparked me to continue and ultimately start Black Speakers Network, was that, hey, if I could survive one presentation, I can do two. And a
Absolutely.
couple weeks later, I gave my second, and two turned into four, four turned into eight. I did my first 10. I started speaking outside the club. I eventually graduated from Morgan, went into corporate America, and on and on and on to brought me here today. But, as we talk about this, as we begin to wade into this topic of business power systems for success, I really just want to make sure people kind of understand where I was coming from and how
Mhm.
this all evolved. Because sometimes I think we see certain brands and we just think like, oh wow, it just came together overnight, or this is it just magically happened, and well, these people were lucky and things like that. It's like, no, like there's a methodology for, and everybody has their own unique story, but there's certainly a methodology of building these type of companies and building a brand. It takes time, it takes energy, and there's some pain associated with it as well that we can get into. But certainly for me, when it came to creating an organization like BSN, if you would have been there in 2006, you would have not have voted me most likely to be the person that's leading a speaking organization, primarily because I was an introvert. Michelle, I'm telling, like, I couldn't lead two people in silent prayer. Like my friend Depot, I am not exaggerating. I'm a certified introvert. I like being by myself. My friend Depot said I couldn't move a crowd with a gun. So all these different things, I had to learn these skill of presentation skills, the skill of public speaking I had to learn. And then business is another thing I had to learn. And now they say, Michelle, the best way to learn something is to teach it, which is why I'm so proud of this platform that you created, because now you get an opportunity to continue to teach, share, and pour into the lives of others. And so jumping into Black Speakers Network, I Empower Systems for Success. I started BSN in 2016. It was born out of a need and a desire to truly, identify the next generation of Black professional speakers. And so when I say, next generation, it's not talking about age or anything like
Right.
that. It's really people who are like, man, I had no idea that the professional speaking business existed. And even if you did know, you really are looking for a community of people who can help put the pieces in place. And so one of the ideas that I advocate for all the time is what Dr. George Fraser says, which is that, ideas are good, but systems are better. He
Absolutely.
always says, ideas are good, systems are better. We're really great at coming up with ideas as people, right? Buy Black is an idea. Having a Black directory is a system. So you have to be able to create mechanisms to facilitate the type of exchange that you want. And so as we kind
Yeah.
of introduce this topic, I just want you to know that, we could have just said, oh, I'm going to do an event, or hey, I'm going to, write a book, or I'm going to do any number of different things in business that would serve Black speakers. But what I recognize immediately is that without a system in place, then you're going to continue to work hard over and over and over again and not see the type of success that you want. And so that was really just kind of some of the backstory that goes into, how we got to where we are today.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow, that's a mouthful. Because I tell you,
It
um,
is.
seeking to be an entrepreneur is not an easy thing to do. We all know that. We know how difficult it is sometimes, particularly in our community, to garner the the income, the resources, the backing. We're going to get to your systems, but what was it that prompted you when you started Black Speakers Network? I know that there was something you said, because I listened to everything that you said. I said he has some good nuggets. You talked about the importance of being able to make money in your sleep and how you sold your first deliverable for $5.
Yes,
Talk to
yes.
us about that.
Yeah, that was a standout moment for me because oftentimes, so by the way, I was an atypical millennial. So I spent 11 years working for the same company, held a number of different roles, but same company, 11 years. And so when I started BSN in 2016, I actually I knew that it couldn't be a thing where I'm building it full time. Like I couldn't be out on the road speaking all the time. I had to go to work, so my approach was to try to create a way to, serve an audience, which is what we're all trying to do. If you're doing a business of any kind, you're basically serving an audience. And so, yeah, I would come home, my business hours. A lot of people are like, wake up at 5 a.m. I'm not waking up at 5. I'm not like, it's
Me
just
either,
like,
sir. I'm not doing it. Mm-mm.
and if I do wake up at 5, it's not, I mean, my core business hours became really, you get home, and I would get home in the evening, get settled around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So really from 8 o'clock to midnight were like my core BSN building hours. And you can get some things done in the evening, but for the most part, you have to create products and services that can continue to operate while you're not there. And so one evening I came home and I just sat down. We had no business model when I first started. All we had was like a Twitter page, a website, I think maybe a Facebook group at that point, and an email address. Like that was it. Like there was no system, there was no product, services, events, etc. So I was like, I'm gonna just create something because I need to learn more about if this is even a market, like if I'm even going to be able to be successful. And so I came home. It was a Friday night. Sat down on the computer 9 o'clock, and started typing away. And my first product was a PDF download, as you mentioned. It was called the 51 Online Resources to Find and Book Speaking Engagements. And so, Michele, it was not a pretty PDF. It was not perfect. I'm sure a couple of the links didn't work. All types of stuff that wasn't beautifully branded. Like you have your thing here. Like I could have used your help back then. It was like a PDF. I packaged it, named it, sent the email out 8 o'clock that morning, and by 8:05, guess what? I priced it at $5. By 8:05, we had our first sale, $5. And so
Awesome.
to a lot of people, they'll be like, well, $5, who cares? But in my mind, it was an automatic trigger because I knew I had just created revenue from something that was in my head less than 12 hours ago. So if I
Wow.
could create $5, I could create $50 million, from the same process, which is, information marketing, being able to create a product or service. So that. And then by 8:15, I had $15. By 8:30, I had $50, and on and on and on. And still didn't make thousands of dollars on that product. We make several hundreds of dollars, but it was enough for me to validate some assumptions, to get some revenue in the door. I mean, that paid for my Zoom account, like that paid for like some gas, it paid for, internet hosting. And so I think part of the thing for entrepreneurs is that we kind of get in our own way and we refuse to start. Like we want to swing for the home run instead of getting on first base. And so the other thing is that what I recognize inherently, Michele, is that I did have a goal to transition into full time entrepreneurship, which I did last April, April 12th of 2019. I was able to leave. But one of the things I realized is that everybody thinks that they need to replace their income when it's really not the direct thing that they need to replace. You really need to replace the systems that generate your income versus just replacing your income. So because if you go into just another job that is your company, you're still going to be in the same position.
Yes, yes. We have a question from our listening audience says, can your goals for establishing, building, and growing your business be too conservative or too aggressive, particularly in Black corporate?
In
In
Black corporate?
mm-hmm,
Well, I think the thing I love about entrepreneurship is that you can decide. And so for me, I have, and when we get to the systems, I kind of break down some of the principles I go by. But for me, there's a lot of things that I know I could have done and still could be doing in business to grow a lot faster. However, when you establish your principles and you're like, okay, here's what I'm going to do and here's what I'm not going to do, particularly in the information marketing space. When I say that, I'm talking about speakers, authors, coaches, consultants,
mm-hmm,
people that speak and provide training and things of that nature. There are a lot of people that have a bad taste in their mouth from other people in this industry, just by going through a program and not getting the results that they want, or feeling like they are you're over promising and under delivering. And so I
mm-hmm.
kind of err on the side of caution, Michele, which like I'm a very systematic person. Like I don't care about like doing $500,000 launches. Like, if I could get a product and prove that it works, and then we could scale it from there. So I think there is a such thing as being too aggressive if you don't have proven results, if you don't have a mechanism in place. Because a lot of times, Michele, people will wish for, I want to make, I want, like, how much you want to make in the next 12 months? Like, I want to make $1 million. Well, do you have the infrastructure set up to, if $1 million, it's like, an extra 1,500 customers. Do you have an infrastructure set up for $1,500? Like, are you even like, is your tax structure even like right? Do you have a business bank account? Like, there's so many different things. We just want to kind of aggressively get the big paycheck, but we don't want to set up the foundation, which is why in BSN, we talk about, getting clarity on your mission, your message, marketing, how to monetize, and how to manage your speaking business. It all has to go together. Now, on the conservative side, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the thing that you have to kind of balance that with is that the world is moving. Like, you think
Yeah,
that, just because you have like the best idea right now, that the world is going to sit still and wait for you to execute. Like, there's somebody else right now, like, that had the exact same idea that you did, but they're going to take action on it. And so,
yeah,
yeah, if you're waiting around, like, everybody's like, man, I don't know if I should get on TikTok. And just for example, now TikTok could be shut down in the United States. You had a 14-month window to get to do your thing and then transfer that audience, and then it's gone. So market conditions are consistently changing. Consumer appetites are changing. Global economics are changing. And so there is a window there that if you don't take action, you may not get what you think you can get.
so essentially, me paraphrasing, we have people who want the money, but they don't want to do the grunt work to get the money. They're expecting, this big payout. And again, maybe they have a website and they have an email, but they have not put these very important systems in place that we're getting ready to speak about. Because in our community, particularly, what I've seen, I'm not saying it's everybody, but what I've seen people who are excited to be entrepreneurs, but again, they don't have a tax ID number, they haven't set up a bank account, they've not put all of these things in place, and then they want to know why things aren't happening. And like you said, the seasons and times, they're changing so quickly. In the digital world, they're changing. everything is just changing, and those windows of opportunity, they get smaller and smaller and smaller depending on what's going on. So why don't you talk about why systems are critical for entrepreneurs?
I think systems are critical for people, and I think that you every one of us are operating in multiple systems every single day. And so you're going to be in a system whether you want to or not.
Mhm.
So the only choice is whether or not you're going to be doing a healthy system or an unhealthy system. So a basic example is kind of like right now, think about your mail. Some people have piles and piles of mail like sitting on a counter somewhere or tucked away in a room. That might be an unhealthy system if you have like really important mail or checks or things that you got to pay or tickets or whatever. That there's an entire industry. There are entire industries built on the fact that you aren't going to create a system for yourself. That's why you get like late fees for your checking account. That's why credit card companies are set up the way they are. They are betting against you that you're not going to set up auto pay. They're betting against you that you're not going to notice that automatic deposit or that renewal of your memberships that you don't need and stuff like that. Like there are entire industries that are using your own psychology against you. And so for us, before we even get into entrepreneurship, I think systems are just critical for people because we have the choice to decide everything in our life, whether we are going to create healthy systems or unhealthy systems. But when it comes to business, it's especially important because as entrepreneurs, and using myself as an example, I'm a first generation everything, like first generation college student, first generation entrepreneur. I think I was the first person in my family to see Hamilton. Like I'm the first for everything. So like it's kind of I wasn't growing up at the dinner table having conversations about scaling a business, operations, sales, marketing, digital marketing, running ads, like managing bank accounts, like you said, accounting. And so these are all things that we have to learn. And we are all limited by three basic resources:
Okay.
time, as one. We only have 24 hours in a day, as we know. But more importantly, we have time, we have money, which finite resource for all of us, and then we also have the other resource that we don't talk enough about, and that's energy. So time, money, and energy. Now, time is pretty easy because it's like, okay, I have, just like when I was working, I was like, okay, I have about 3 to 4 hours a day to do something.
Hmm.
Money, okay, that's measurable. I can look at my bank account, see my balances, figure out how to reduce debt or whatever. But energy is kind of like, okay, like even if I work all day and I get to like 9 o'clock, if I physically don't have the creative energy necessary to sit down and create a product, that's why I always did my best work on a Friday, because Friday I was pumped. Most people use their extra energy and they go not necessarily waste it, but it's kind of like if you go party or if you're like watching Netflix for 12 hours when you could be like building a business, that's your energy going out the window. And so that's why systems are there to help temper all three of those variables. With a system in place, you may have the same amount of time as the person next to you. You may have more, in some cases less money than the other people that you're competing against.
Hmm.
And you may have however much energy, but now you could structure your day, you could structure your time in a way you're maximizing the amount of energy, maximizing where your money is actually going, and you're optimizing your time so that there's not as much waste. So that's why systems are critical.
Very critical, because we have people, particularly in this digital age, who they would rather binge and then they're mad why their bank account is broken. So
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
you
And I was
wonder.
one of those people because I was like, why isn't this working? But it takes time.
It takes time, but it takes energy. So one of the things, I tell my husband, I said, I want to be finished everything by 8 o'clock, particular days or what have you. But I said, are we in agreement with this? Because I know it's going to take time and my energy to make sure that I get the gas, that I do this, that I do that, that I'm building all of these different things. I have a coach, lever to life. She's watching, and I promise you, just the things that between you and her, you all are helping me with things. And when I write something down that you tell me, I try to execute it. In fact, my coach, she asked, what are some practical ways to engage with the constant changes in the business culture?
Yeah. So the way I interpret that question is, you know, for me, it's kind of like, all of us are operating in a specific industry. So I'm in the information marketing industry, which speaking is like a subsection of that. And so when we think about our time, part of it is kind of keeping a pulse on what's happening in our respective industries. So what new technology can we leverage? What is like what industry like events could we potentially be a part of? But if we're so scattered, just trying to basically stay above water, we
Uh-huh.
can't even focus on those type of things. I get invitations all the time from, Active Campaign and Zoom. And we were just talking about StreamYard before we go on here. There are like product updates. There are all these different opportunities to stay ahead of the game. Sometimes they're even free. Just because companies want to continue to educate you on, how to get the most out of their resources. But if we're just too scattered, then we don't get anything done. So for me, going back to your coach's question, what I kind of do is I have first of all, I live in Microsoft OneNote. Like, I know we're not on systems yet, but that's like one system I can just put out there across the gate. We are in the age of, I think when computers were first becoming like personal computers, the ones sitting in your house were first becoming prominent, like when Microsoft Windows first came out. Windows was lauded because of the fact that you could create your own file system. So you
Mhm.
have like 20 folders on your desktop, and then you have folders for like work and home and school. And then each folder has like a subfolder, and that was
Mhm.
cool. But there's more information created like every minute of the day than what we had even available back in the early 90s for an entire year. And so with that amount of information, we're beyond just, hey, get a file cabinet, get folders, put them in there. Like, your ability to access information, your ability to organize things as they come in are critical. And so we're in the age now of search. And so
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I love Google's goal was to organize all of the world's information. That's why they're one of the largest companies in the world. They're an information company, and all of our companies, all of our businesses are ultimately built on information. But it's not just how much information that you have, it's how quickly you're able to organize and what you can actually do with that information. So for me, I like Microsoft OneNote because it has all of my stuff in there. Even the details for this interview, as we were talking, like I pulled it up, I typed in Michelle, and it's like, boom, here's your interview. Here's all the notes. Here's all the emails that you sent me, which were very helpful, by the way. Thank you. Like, all the stuff I needed to know about this interview, I was able to get it in one swoop. Same thing. Anything with BSN, the Global Speaker Summit. We're running a podcast. We got Black Speakers University coming up. I may have 7 different conversations in a day on 7 different topics, and I'm able to organize all of those and get to them in a moment's notice. I can get to them on my phone. I can get to them on my computer. And so I think just being organized, this isn't a commercial for OneNote. I just use it and I like it. But whatever system you're using, I think it's important to be sure that you could get to your stuff at a moment's notice and organize it in a way that's effective for you, including what you're going to be doing that day. And I use Google Calendar and stuff like that, but I have a priority list where, like, I need to get stuff out of my head into a place that I can know that I can go back and trust. I don't have to worry about, like, oh man, I forgot to email such and such. So that is the biggest practical thing that I think people could do for their own success.
Okay, so let's start talking about some of these systems. And I have a question someone asked that you can answer afterwards. But the
Yep.
question says, how do you execute, manage, and maintain entrepreneurship in the midst of a pandemic after you've developed these systems? So you can answer that now, or we can talk about the systems and you can wrap back to it. The choice is yours. You have the floor, sir.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I think we're talking about so we have this model, and Michelle, I love models. It's like
Yeah,
this my like the 5 M's, the 5 C, like everything's
five
a
P's.
model. Yeah. It's because I'm an like my background is instructional design and adult learning. And so I think, just giving people models to walk into and a framework helps to do it. So for this, we have like the 5 parts of every system. And so I call them the 5 Ps. So it's principles, process, procedures, people, and platforms. And so I answer that question as we talk about principles. And so for me, the principles, basically principles are what they're fundamental, unchangeable truths. And I
Mhm.
believe that's the first part before we start getting into technology and trying to figure out like what tool we need. Like you have to figure out what are the unchangeable truths in your speaking business. Because again, as your coach mentioned, like you're going to be getting hit with stuff all the time. It's like you're going to be offered opportunities that may make sense to from a financial perspective, but not make sense from a branding perspective. And so you have to decide what type of business owner you're going to be, and what are the things that are basically non-negotiables in your speaking business. For
Right.
us, there are 3 things that kind of come to mind when it comes to like core principles. My first one, as I mentioned earlier, is slow down to speed up. I don't need to be like first to market. I don't need to have a race to $1 million, but I do want to make sure that we're taking care of people like you, Michele, that are in our community, that I'm responding to requests, that we are, just really doing a great job of ensuring that we are being great stewards of what we already have before we try to, do more while still trying to, push the envelope. So that's number one in principles. Number two is, really focusing on one thing at a time, even amongst that. And so oftentimes one of the books I love is The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman, and he introduces a concept because a lot of times we talk about like multitasking, and mothers, you're probably exempted from this because y'all are just incredible like multitaskers. Like you can cook, be
Right.
watching kids, on Zoom, like doing a bunch of things. But for most people, multitasking is kind of a myth because it's like Josh Kaufman introduced this concept called the cognitive switching penalty, which basically means that anytime that you stop doing one activity and start doing another and going back and forth, it may to the outside seem like you're multitasking, but in reality, you're getting less efficient with each task. And so the
Wow.
cognitive switching penalty is the amount of time and focus that you lose going back and forth between tasks, even if it's little things like, you're talking with somebody and you're checking email, and then you go from checking email to opening the actual mail. Then you come back and then you got like somebody else in your office to talk to. So focusing on one thing at a time and taking that thing through to completion is a big thing that, we try to do. And the last thing, which we mentioned, I believe too, is replacing perfection with progress. Like that $5 PDF download, a lot of people were like, "Man, this is garbage." Yeah, it's. I don't think it's garbage, but it's not the. Could it be better? Yes. Is it serving the audience? Yes. And so sometimes, like, instead of waiting to create this perfect, product that's beautifully packaged and everything like that, you just gotta get a customer. Like, you gotta go out and prove to yourself and to the market that you have something that people want. And then once you have that, you can make it better over time. And so my famous example, not famous, but the example I like for that is the iPhone. Like the first iPhone um, sucked, compared to like the iPhone. What are we on like now? Like 11.
I don't
So the first iPhone paled in comparison. That's why it didn't stay around that long. Before you know it, there was an iPhone 2 and an iPhone 3. But Steve Jobs wasn't like, yo, I need 14 megapixel camera. It needs to be able to hold like 1,000 apps. The first iPod was, hey, I just want to be able to put 1,000 songs in my pocket. And they hit that goal, and then it was like, okay, now we want to do a screen. Okay, now we want to connect it. Now we want to do video. So you take it to the next level. So stop trying to shoot for perfection right out of the gate. Um, and then going back to the question, can you repeat the question actually, Michele?
Yes. How do you execute and manage and maintain entrepreneurship in the midst of a pandemic after you have developed these systems?
Oh yeah. So I mean, it depends on the business, but obviously right now a lot of entrepreneurs are struggling with that. I mean, if you have a traditional brick and mortar, business, like a bakery or a restaurant, I mean, those processes are going to, shift. And I think part of it as an entrepreneur is absolutely being flexible, but also realizing that, you have to be able to respond to market conditions. Like I see a lot of people now, even in our industry, um, they were like, man, I don't like webinars, but guess what? You're going to be like, doing a webinar, or, you're going to be doing, I just got invited to like a virtual, like a book signing event, things like that. And so, not being so locked into one way of doing things, I think, it's not fun. It's not easy. I'm not sitting here trying to say that, it does feel frustrating when you spend so much time, training employees, getting your systems up to speed, investing in technology and resources, and only for something external that you had absolutely no control over come over and interrupt your business. So, not saying that it's easy, but I think, adopting, a flexible mindset, which is, again, one of the reasons why we created BSN, because I feel like whatever industry you're in right now, like, you need to be a part of a community. If you're a speaker, hopefully you join our community. But, if you're like, if you're a baker, then you need to be part of the National Association of Professional Bakers, like whatever it is, because when you're in a community, that's when you can start to distill best practices, learn from other people who are in the same boat as you, and then start to collectively create a path forward.
Awesome, awesome. So, what other systems? And I know that you talked about principles and process, and then, well, you named them: principles, process, procedures, people, and platforms. So,
Yeah.
try to encapsulate that, and then we have another question, after you answer that. So, try to pull those in together, because we have some entrepreneurs on the in our group here who are asking lots of good questions, and I want to make
Okay.
sure the playback, they'll be able to go back and take some good notes.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we can synopsize the So we already talked about principles. So, process is next. So that's really developing a sequence of tasks, designed to achieve a specific, result. And so that is kind of like your day to day, your SOPs, your human, like your, step by step. And we should be developing those. And a lot of times we kind of get stuck in the place, of, and back to the gentleman's question before, they're asking about, what happens when a pandemic hits or something shifts in your business. Ultimately, you need to scale up. Like right after this, I have an interview. We're bringing, three new people onto our team. We got a chief technology officer, we got a copywriter. So, to bring people onto your team, you need to be able to document effectively. So having those, step by step tasks are absolutely, necessary. The next for procedures. So these are kind of like the rules that govern how your process is implemented. And so for us, that's kind of like, okay, um, you know, and this is where culture starts to take place, but it's like, hey, what are we going to do and what are we, not going to do? And so for us, protecting our focus at all costs is absolutely, necessary. So, as an entrepreneur, I make an unpopular decision. Like I don't have all the notifications like on my phone, because one of my governing rules is I want to be able to focus on the things that we're doing. And so if somebody calls me, unless they have a scheduled call, I may not answer. And if I do answer, like it'll be quick. I send them to the calendar so that we can, structure it in a way that I actually have time and be able to give them the attention that they deserve. I have the notifications on my phone muted. Like, I go through text messages in batches. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. Like if I had all my notifications on, Michelle, we wouldn't even be able to get through this interview. Like it would just be ding, 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 ding,
Right.
So that type of thing is important. So establish your rules. The fourth is, people. And so these are, the human resources necessary to establish and maintain your system. The bottom line is you're going to need help. Like, there is no way in the world, I could run BSN, by myself. I have, one virtual assistant. We're about to add another. Actually, we just added another one this weekend. So we got two, out of country VAs. We have a graphic design team. We have a creative director. We have for the Global Speaker Summit, we have two event activation teams, one focused on systems, the other focused on experience and logistics. And then we have 20 ambassadors who are BSM members who are helping us with that. We have a project manager, plus the 30 plus platform partners that we work with to deliver services to our speakers. And so, again, didn't start that way, but
Absolutely.
that's kind of, you got to think about who are the people that are going to help bring your system to life. And then finally, platforms. And so to me, those are like the tools and technology necessary to establish and automate your system. And so for us, those are what we personally use. And I can answer any question about platforms, but I mentioned earlier Microsoft OneNote to ensure that I'm capturing everything. We use like Acuity Scheduler for our calendar, as well as Google Calendar. We have like a membership platform. One of our new sponsors is Member Space, and so they do an incredible job at making sure that our membership system runs smoothly. And so you have to start thinking about what are the tools, the apps, the technology that's going to be necessary in order to make your system run. So those are the 5 Ps in a nutshell, Michele.
Wonderful, wonderful. And it's good because I was listening to what you were saying, and I have several people in here said, focus, focus, no notifications, focus. My husband always tells me, he's like, focus. And the next question says, what are some things to avoid in business and non-negotiables for entrepreneurs? Now, I know you mentioned some things. Now, I know non-negotiables are personal. They're akin to whatever your particular business is. So if my business is doing this show, my non-negotiables are don't be late, read your email. You have to, this is just me. You can, jump in, but I believe that your non-negotiables are tethered to what you're doing, tethered to your business and where you want to go. Am I right, or am I off base?
No, you're 100% right, and you drive that. I think everybody, should have like terms and conditions. Like, most of us don't read them, when you sign up for something, but you should have them because it gives you something to fall back on. And so, part of our terms and conditions are things like, making sure when you have a community of 10,000 people, it is as much as we try to ensure that it's a place where everybody feels safe and inspired and nurtured.
Mhm.
You have to get in quickly and shut down things when it's
Yeah.
like somebody thinks that they could intimidate someone else, or if there's people that are disrespectful or whatever. Like we haven't had a lot of instances, but there have been people who have been like banned and blocked from our group just for like not following the procedure.
Right.
And you get your warning, but we're not going to put up with nonsense. And so I think the non-negotiables, people need to know that if you what you stand for, because stand for nothing, fall for anything.
Yeah.
But people will respect you, one way or the other if they know that you are, going to stand up and protect the people that you're called to serve. And so a lot of times you may have to take a stance that may be unpopular with one group, but it's necessary, and that's just kind of what it is. But I do agree, Michele is absolutely up to that person. There are tons of people that would love to see like Chick-fil-A open on Sunday. It's not going to happen. Like it's just not. Like it's built into the DNA of that company. It's like, oh, we're not doing it. So, and it's an unpopular. Like they could probably make. I think the estimate was like 25 to 30% more revenue just by deciding to open up on Sunday, but it's not worth it. So you have to decide, like, what's your Sunday? Like, what is your Sunday in your business?
Well,
And
I
it's
know that you have your 10 o'clock Tuesdays. I do know.
yes.
I follow Brian. I know about his 10 o'clock Tuesdays. And I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. And so I'm glad you said, that you have to choose your Sunday. You have to choose that moment, that space, that time where you're saying no to whatever and to whomever. Someone says non-negotiables equal core values. And if you don't have any core values, then you'll accept everything. And something I've learned along the way is no is the perfect sentence.
It's a
It,
complete sense.
it's a sentence all by itself. So when I say no, I mean no. Another question says, what technology is necessary to set up for your success?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, depending on, I don't know what business, this person's coming from, but for us, if you're going to be a 21st century thought leader of any kind, again, speaker, author, coach, I mean, email. Like that's like I if you are a speaker right now, if you are author, like if you're doing anything where you're taking information out of your head, remixing it, and serving an audience, like you cannot be a 21st century marketer and not have an email list. Like you just can't. And everybody's like, email's dying. No, it's not. Like, this is one thing that I wish we had focused a lot more aggressively on in the beginning, even though we've been building an email list from the beginning. But go sign up for MailChimp, go sign up for Constant Contact, go sign up for Active Campaign. Like, I don't care what you sign up for, but uh, I was just on a call for speaker earlier today, and they're like, "Yo, how do I get paid for more speaking engagements?" I'm like, "Well, not every speaking engagement is going to be paid. Like, it just isn't. Like, so don't worry about it. But there's things you could be walking away with as a win. Can you sell products and services? Yes. Okay, great. Then you need to be focusing on. So you're going to sell a product or service. You're going to need a website. You're going to need a landing page. You're going to need some type of lead magnet as a way to capture contact information. But at a minimum, everything should be going back. Like, I believe that your email list, even more so, like, I'm very proud of the fact that we have like 21,000 followers on Instagram, 10,000 members in a Facebook group, a couple thousand people on LinkedIn. But that email address is an asset. It is the biggest single asset, I believe, in the wheelhouse of a 21st century marketer. So if you don't have that down, then I would fix that immediately. I would definitely make sure that you have a website that is mobile compatible, because most of the traffic is going to be mobile now. And I would make sure that you have some sort of that you have some sort of plug and play system where you can easily and quickly get products and services up and out, that's attached to some sort of cart, that you're not physically, sending people PayPal links every time you want to get paid for something. Yo, create a create a landing page. If you don't want to do that, then sign up for something like Gumroad, where you can have your own like product portal and get it started. This stuff is not hard, but it does take, again, slow down the speed up and making sure that you're setting yourself up for success and not creating like another job.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. My coach has been telling me, and I'm working on it, building my email, my email list. So I've been looking at MailChimp and things of that nature. So we started working on something the other day to drive people to my website that I can then have them, respond, and then it'll go to my email. And so I'm working on that. So I try to execute things that I'm told. Given everything that I'm doing in my life, but this has been some good stuff. Uh, Someone said emails are everything, all caps.
I mean, I was in Lamar Tyler's thing, and it was like, we print money over here. I mean, it's kind of like that. Like because I mean, at the end of the day, if my big thing now, so system, we're talking about systems right now, but systems is just one part of my overall methodology, but I call it PCS. So um, it's partnerships, community, and systems. So those are the real three things that I focus on as an entrepreneur. And so partnerships is like, hey, once you figure out what you can do, you're growing a following, and it's like you're not going to be able to be all things to all people,
Right.
to your people. So who else can you build partnerships with to continue to serve your audience along the way? Community is what we've been talking about, and so I believe we are certainly in the age of community, where I don't care what it is. I mean, I went to uh, I go to Starbucks probably too often. I go to Target. Target has their Target circle. Every business that's smart is figuring out a way to not just one-way communication with customers, but to create a community, create an ecosystem. You're giving incentive, you're staying in touch, you're learning, you're creating conversation. And
Yeah.
so that's the big thing now. And then systems are on the back end of that to facilitate that. And so we're constantly looking at new things. I'm looking at text message marketing platforms, et cetera. But at the end of the day, like, you need a way to keep in contact with people and for people to keep in contact with you, because the know, like, and trust factors aren't going to change. Like
Mhm.
marketing, like core marketing, like human psychology that drives purchasing decisions hasn't changed in the last 150 years. Like Facebook, we got Facebook ads and everything. Like the tools
Yeah.
change, but the fundamentals don't change. Uh,
Right.
so that's
So
what you need to know.
branding is also part of that system, because if I have purple and gold on one thing and orange and green on another thing, and my logo is different on each thing, it's disjointed, and people are like, "Well, who are you?" And so I have learned, because my husband is a graphic designer, so he brands everything. So everything that I do, whether it's in ministry or whether it's on, in mainstream, he keeps them separate, but he brands them. So when you see me, when you see Life Matters, you're going to see the purple and gold. If you see, my ministry, you're going to see the green. So branding is key. So this has just been so good. I wish we had like 3 hours to do this. We also want to let everybody know that you have a book for those of you who are speakers. It's called Speak Up, the Ultimate Guide to Dominate in the Speaking Industry. I have the book on my shelf. I've thumbed through it. I've picked up some nuggets. Can't wait to use. And so this young man, Mr. Brian Olds, is a phenom in and of himself, and I'm excited to have him on the show today. If you want to contact him, you can certainly reach out to him by visiting www.brianjolds.com. If you are interested in joining our network, Black Speakers Network, visit www.blackspeakersnetwork.com. There's also a Facebook group that you can go out there. I can't remember the actual link to it, but you
Well,
have to join. You
I
you
was
have
gonna say too, if people want a free copy of the book that you mentioned, when they join a group, if they leave their email
to get
system,
a
they
yep.
get a copy of the ebook. So that's a all you gotta do is go to Facebook, type in Black Speakers Network, super easy to find. So
And I got the e-copy, but because I don't read well from a screen, I went to Amazon and purchased. I thought
nice.
I need a book because I like to hold books, but that's just that's my personal preference. I'm a book person. I like to turn pages and write in it and flip back stuff. But this has been a phenomenal session. If you have any closing advice, what would you say to our listening audience?
Yeah. So, to punctuate this conversation on systems, I would just have you. We had this thing where we talked about like clarity days, because we have some people that are full time entrepreneurs, some people are still kind of like dualpreneurs and stuff like that. If you're in a space where you're just like, you feel like you're just like all over the place, you have the ability to pump the brakes at any time.
Yeah,
Summer is almost, as we're doing this live, like summer is like wrapping up. I know some people who, will take a tired day, check into a hotel like 20 minutes from your house, and just turn off the phone, turn off email, whatever, and just get clear. Like some of you just need like 4 hours where you can just do a brain dump, get everything out of your head, and then start to envision like, how do I want my life to work? How do I want my business to work? And then to start organizing that, and then start moving toward that thing. Like, don't, they always say, like, Einstein, definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And so if you want to expect different results, you got to do something different. So hit pause, take time, get clear, do a brain dump, figure out what you want that process to look like, and then start,
absolutely.
putting the pieces in, start making the investments, start bringing in the people if needed. Ask your husband for help, like you're doing, like whatever it is that you got to do to start moving toward that, do that, but don't wait. Just pump the brakes and do it. So that'd be my biggest piece.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I wish I could hug you, but we have to do it this way. But
That's
I
right.
thank you so much. I thank you so much. This has been an awesome show. I'm excited. I cataloged some things that you said. And I just want to thank you for joining me, Brian. It's been a wonderful, I still got people commenting. This is the end of the show, but
I'll jump into the comments, and if anybody still has questions, I answer in the comments.
yeah, so they're still asking questions. So I just want to remind everybody to join me on Facebook Live each week. You can watch the recorded show. They're downloaded as episodes on YouTube at Life Matters with Michelle TV official. Don't forget to go out there and like, share, and to subscribe. And if you would like to be a guest on the show, please check out my website at www.iam-mij.com. That's www.iam-mij.com. Once again, I want to thank you for my friend. I call him my friend already. He's just my, just whew,
That's
Mr.
right.
Brian Owens. Thank you so much for joining me on today. And we want all of our listening audience to know that what matters to you, it certainly matters to me. We will talk to you again next week. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.